Good afternoon. Welcome back. Just a kind reminder that we are broadcasting this plenary session via online live streaming. Please share with your friends and colleagues the news and tell them that they will be able to see the plenary sessions on britishcouncil.org.mx/BBuildLive. We are delighted to have Sophia Mavridi with us today to deliver our next plenary address, Rediscovering the Transformative Potential of Technology in ELT. In this session, she will take a closer look at the transformative role of technology in language learning in an attempt to separate the hope from the hype surrounding it. Sophia will help us to explore effective and practical ways to help you evaluate learning technologies and create engaging, relevant, and personalized learning experiences for your students. She will look at how certain barriers, such as time constraints and insufficient digital literacies, can be dealt with by the language practitioner, teacher educator, academic manager, and school owner. Sophia Mavridi's love for language education spans over the course of 20 years, during which she has had wonderful opportunities to work as a primary and secondary school EFL teacher, director of studies, examiner, and more recently, lecturer, teacher trainer, and researcher. She is currently teaching in UK higher education, as well as providing in-service training for institutions and publishers around the world. Her latest co-edited volumes are English for 21st Century Skills and Digital Innovations and Research in Language Learning, both of which reflect her great interest in the transformational role of innovative pedagogies in language education. Sophia is the IATEFL Learning Technologies Special Interest Group Coordinator, a special group that focuses on the principled use of technology in language learning and teaching. She is also a regular presenter at international conferences and enjoys providing realistic and practical ideas to the teachers who attend her sessions. Feel free to connect with her on Twitter @SophiaMav, and take a look at her website, sophiamavridi.com. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Sophia Mavridi.
Hello? Wow. It's fantastic to be here. It really is. And a big hello to the people who are watching online. Hello, everyone from around the world. And a big thank you to the British Council for providing this opportunity to people to watch these sessions online. So, today we are going to be talking about how we can rediscover the transformative potential of technology in ELT. And I think from my bio, you notice that I'm a proponent of technology. I'm not a skeptic, I'm an advocate of technology. So why rediscovering the transformative potential? Isn't it commonly accepted and acknowledged and understood that technology can transform education? To get us into the thinking zone around technology and pedagogy, I'm going to ask you to discuss with the person next to you 4 questions. Feel free to start from any question. Feel free to skip questions if they're not relevant to you. And for the people watching online, just try to reflect. So, here it is. I'm going to read the questions, and then I'm going to signal the beginning of the pair work with Carol's tambourine. I saw Carol using the tambourine yesterday at her amazing plenary, and I thought to myself, oh my God, I so want this tambourine in my plenary session. So I'm going to signal the beginning of the activity with this, and then again, after 3 minutes, this will signal the end of the activity. So the questions for you are, what are the benefits of using technology for language learning? Is every technology good technology? Why? Why not? Who should use the technology? The teacher or the students? What criteria do you use to evaluate a particular learning technology? So, 3 minutes with the person next to you, go.
I've been trying to do it right. I've been living a lonely life. I've been sleeping here instead. I've been sleeping in my bed. Sleeping in my bed. So show me family, all the blood that I would need. I don't know where I belong. I don't know where I went wrong. I can write a song. I belong to you, you belong to me, my sweet home. I belong to you, you belong to me, my sweet home. I don't think you're right for him. Look at what it might have been. Took a bus to Chinatown. I'd be standing on Canal and Bowery. She'd be standing next to me. I belong to you, you belong to me, my sweet home. I belong to you, you belong to me, my sweet home. Love, we need it now. Let's go. Whoa, son. Somewhere we now. I belong to you, you belong to me, my sweet home. I belong to you, you belong to me, my sweet home.
Thank you. Thank you. So, let's start from the first question. What are the benefits of using technology for learning? This was just to activate your thinking. I'm not going to ask you for feedback. So, this is a very general question. It depends on the technology, it depends on our students' level. But in general, we can say that we can find information at the click of a button. We can create communities and collaborate. We can create a document and get our students to work on the same document in the classroom, outside of the classroom. We can flip the classroom and use class time for project-based learning. And the internet, this giant network that brings together billions of minds, has huge potential for self-directed learning, for exposure to real English, for practice. Students can practice the language. So the possibilities are enormous and unprecedented. However, is every technology good technology? There are so many technologies out there, and there is so much information about these technologies that it becomes overwhelming. And it may be even more challenging when this information comes out in the form of lists. For example, 50 tools that teachers should master, 100 tools that every teacher should know about. Does this sound familiar? Does it ring any bell? So, according to this article, every teacher should know about these tools, 50 in particular, because they are exciting and because they are constantly hitting the market. And that's why they should be part of any teacher's toolkit. My question is this the right approach to digital language learning? What do you think? No. No mention of the learning aspect, no advice on how to evaluate the technology, no tips to the teacher on how to use the technologies with their students. Every teacher should know about these tools because they are popular and because they are exciting. So is it about the quantity or the quality we should be talking? The quality. Do teachers really need to know about 50 tools or 100 tools or 200 tools? Or do they really need to know how to make informed decisions about some technologies in order to help their students' language learning? You see, in all the excitement around what technology can do for education, there is something that we all too often overlook. Many educators believe, or they are forced to believe, that every technology is good technology. This is simply not true. What is also not true is that technology in itself can transform education. Technology has a huge potential to be used in an innovative way, in a student-centered way, and really change the landscape in education. But it has an equal potential to be used in a very traditional, teacher-centered way that cannot transform education. According to Wilson, there is nothing transformative about every kid having an iPad, unless you are able to reach higher order teaching and learning. If schools take all this technology and use it like a textbook, or use it like, or just have teachers show PowerPoint from an interactive whiteboard, or use drill and kill software, multiple choice activities, gap fill activities on the computer, they might as well not even have it at all. None of this is transformative. It is a pretty typical teacher-centered way of teaching that is in no way transforming education. If education ever going to be transformative, then this will be because the teachers, the material writers, and the teacher trainers will have found the activities and the technologies that exploit this potential. And this is exactly what we are going to be talking about today. We need to challenge the existing paradigms in technology education, the models that focus on the technology, on the tool and tools and tools, and instead embrace the approaches that focus on the learning. So technology integration should not be a tool-oriented approach, because just using technology does not necessarily mean that students will be learning. So, what about the transformative potential then? How can we achieve this? We need to set our pedagogical criteria first. Pedagogical criteria, as the term suggests, are the informed decisions that we need to make with regards to our approaches and goals, our teaching approaches and goals. And when it comes to digital language learning, this can be boiled down to skills development, knowledge construction, collaboration and interaction, creation and personalization, digital responsibility and ethics. And we are going to take a closer look at every one of them, each one. So I'm going to be asking you a question before each criterion, so you will have 1 minute to answer this question with a person next to you. And for those watching online, then try to reflect on the question. So, question number 1, that has to do with the first criterion, skills development. What are the skills that students should be developing? Why are students in our classroom? You have 1 minute. Off you go.
I feel a filth in my bones. Wash off my hands till it's gone. The walls, they're closing in with velvet curtains. Some love was made for the lights. Some kisses cheap goodnight.
Thank you. This tambourine is magical, really. Thank you. Okay, so skills development. First of all, we are language teachers, material writers, and teacher trainers. So the most important thing that we need to be doing is to help students to develop their language skills, be it reading, writing, listening, speaking, vocabulary, grammar. So the first question that we need to ask is, will the technology help my students to develop the language skills that I want them to? This sounds like an obvious question, but in many cases it is taken for granted, and instead we may focus on other characteristics of the tool, cool characteristics that have nothing to do with language skills development. So this is the first question we should be asking. But a language cannot be isolated, cannot be separated from literacy, from society, from culture, from the big issues that our world is going through. And the ELT classroom is an amazing place, a fantastic opportunity to teach students, to help students to develop the skills and competencies that will help them to thrive in the 21st century. So the 4 C's, collaboration, communication, critical thinking, creativity, but also the literacies, digital literacy, visual literacy, sustainability, leadership, well-being, empathy, inclusion. So the next question that we should be asking is, will the technology help my students to develop the skills and competencies that will help them to thrive in the 21st century? Criterion number 2, knowledge construction. So the question for you is, how do learners build new knowledge? Is it from what we tell them? Or is it from what they understand? And how do these mechanisms work? So, one question, 1 minute, off you go.
At high heel, lock up your doors with steel. They're making noise in my street. My blinds are drawn, I can't see. Smashed in my car window, didn't touch the stereo. Slow it down and come back to bed. Rest your arms and rest your legs.
Thank you. Thank you. Knowledge construction. According to cognitive constructivism, knowledge is not transmitted but constructed by each learner when they are processing information while they are engaged in meaningful activity. So, knowledge is not transmitted, it is constructed. Students may be receiving information, but this doesn't mean that they are learning. They need to process information, they need to understand it, and they need to make meaningful connections between what they already know, between prior knowledge and new knowledge. You may be saying exactly the same things to your students, but each student will construct their own knowledge. I'm saying exactly the same thing to all of you, but each one of you will construct your own knowledge. So, the question is, what technologies can help students to construct new knowledge? Or can technologies alone help students to construct knowledge? Picasso once said, computers are useless. They can only give you answers. This sounds like a controversial statement because an answer is considered to be a good thing, isn't it? But in the end, is it the answer or the question that really matters? Brilliant thinkers never stop asking questions, inventive questions, original questions, because they know that this is a very good way to get deeper insights. So, what kind of questions should we be asking? Well, in the digital era that we are in, we need to stop asking questions that can be answered on Google. This is a rather narrow and I would say passive form of inquiry that involves very little or no critical thinking at all. And in the digital era that we are in, when our students can find information at the click of a button, we don't need to create more keyboard clickers. We need to create more critical thinkers. So, instead of asking a question that can be answered on Google, let's present them with a problem. And then invite them to come up with their own original questions, and then research and evaluate and synthesize information in order to answer their own questions. But in order for them to do that, we also need to teach them how to evaluate the credibility of online resources. Because not everything that we read or watch or see online is reliable or trustworthy. There is so much misinformation and fake news, so students need to know how to evaluate the credibility of online resources and information. So teach them to apply the rule of 3 to everything they see or watch online. Who is the author? Is the article or the video anonymous? This says something. What is the purpose of this message? What is the author trying to make me believe? What opinions or ideas are missing? These are so simple questions that you can use with young learners as well. And this is a fantastic opportunity to teach language. For example, what language do fake news stories use? What adjectives? How do they try to convince people? So teach students to apply the rule of 3 to everything they read or see or watch online. Criterion number 3. And this is an easy question, I think. One question, 1 minute, collaboration and interaction. How can technology promote collaboration and interaction? Go!
Smile less and dress up some more. Tie up your scarf real tight. These boys are out for blood tonight. Slow it down, Angie, come back to bed. Rest your arm, rest your legs.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So it is said that collaboration is the new competition, meaning that it is key to a 21st century mindset. So learning does not occur in a vacuum. It is a social process. And our students, we need to encourage our students to learn both individually but also by interacting with other people. This is the fundamental principle of sociocultural theories that talk about the social origin of mental functioning. So according to Vygotsky, whose name I will never get to pronounce well, but he's my favorite, every function in the child's cultural development takes place through a form of scaffolding, which is the interaction, by the interaction with the teacher or the peers. So this interaction allows students to advance through the zone of proximal development, which is the distance between what they could do by themselves and what they could achieve when assisted by others. So here is what the learner cannot do even if we help them. And here is what the learner can do without our help. And here is where magic happens. It is where the students can do things when they interact with more knowledgeable peers. And it is important to point out that this zone of proximal development, this interaction, can be student-to-student interaction, teacher-to-student interaction, but also the interaction between the student and the computer. This can also help students advance through the zone of proximal development. And of course, we have the concept of collective intelligence. I love this concept. which, according to Levy, everyone knows something. You know something that I don't know. Nobody knows everything. And what any person knows can be tapped by the group as a whole. So when people join knowledge communities, then they pool knowledge towards a common purpose. And yes, this can be transformative. So what technologies, what tools can help our students to advance through their zone of proximal development and can enhance, can foster this collective intelligence? I would say social media, or the educational versions of social media. Twitter is fantastic when it comes to knowledge communities and participatory cultures. Facebook, if you follow the right people. Blogging, and of course, the educational versions of them, like Edmodo, Moodle, blogs, Google Classroom. All these technologies facilitate and promote knowledge communities and participatory cultures where people are not passive consumers of content, but they also create content, curate it, and share it. This is a very, very active process and a fantastic way to use technology. Now, some of you may be thinking, but we can collaborate and interact without the use of technology. Can we not? And the answer is, of course. Of course we can. We can get students to work in groups and exchange ideas, and this is a knowledge community, absolutely. And they can create projects, and they can learn from each other. And then they can create fantastic things, and we can put them up on the wall for the classmates to see, and perhaps give them some feedback, and for the student for the teacher to assess, and for the parents to be proud of. But this interaction is limited within the classroom. And then the project the following year may end up in a folder or in the bin. Technology gives our students the opportunity to extend their audiences, to write for a real audience, to have a real reason for posting something, for creating something. And also, they have the opportunity for their projects to stay there forever. And so they can create a digital portfolio, a good digital footprint. We will talk about that later on. So create knowledge communities with your students. Encourage them to share what they learn, what they find, the resources that they find. If you teach teenagers and adults, encourage them to use Twitter and other social media and join like-minded people and be exposed to diverse ideas and perspectives. If you teach young learners, of course, you cannot do that, but you may want to collaborate with another class from abroad. Of course, you can collaborate with another class from Mexico, and that's absolutely fine. You can have a virtual space where students can exchange ideas and opinions in threaded discussions, and you can arrange video calls. But if you collaborate with another class from abroad, then students have a real reason for speaking English. And there are so many things that they can talk about culture, about food, about places. So technology can be instrumental when it comes to collaboration and interaction. And yes, this can be transformative. Now, criterion number 4, creation and personalization. I think this is a very easy question. 1 minute, one question: what can students create with technology? Off you go.
Don't ask for cigarettes. She ain't got nothing left for you. We never looked back. It wasn't what we were good at. And when it came to love, we were not good enough for. Slow it down, and she come back to bed.
Thank you, you are amazing. Such a big room, and thank you. So, these are just some examples. Filmmaking. Our students can create short films, they love them. Digital storytelling, creating memes, remixing pictures and text, and creating funny memes. Podcasting, which means recording their voices, and this is an amazing activity and tool for young learners as well, because with young learners, filmmaking can be a little bit difficult because we cannot expose students' faces. They should not be identified unless we have the parents' consent. We don't have these kinds of problems, privacy problems, when it comes to podcasting, because students cannot be identified. Presentations, infographics, blogging for an audience, not just blogging. Online games and quizzes that students create, not just play. Trailers, how-to videos. I was training teachers of very young learners, and these teachers got their students to film themselves without filming the faces, creating how-to videos. And the 4-year-olds were giving instructions about how to draw a heart. So you do that and you do that. Really, really creative. Advertisements, role plays, campaigns. We talked about the problems that our world is facing on sustainability, inclusion, e-safety, on Padlet, or on another tool. So these are only some examples. And I think that we have so many tools and so many options with technology that we need to stop asking students to do things in one particular way, but use technology to make learning flexible for them. And I'll give you an example. We usually, when it comes to presentations, we usually ask students to create an individual presentation or a group presentation and then present to their classmates, right? Why? Do all students enjoy standing in front of an audience and giving a presentation? For some students, this can be intimidating. For some others, humiliating. So, unless you want your students to develop their public speaking skills, that's a totally different story. I work in higher education, I have to do it. My students, like it or not, are going to be assessed on this, so I need to help them to develop their public speaking skills. And don't get me wrong, it is a good thing to help students develop their public speaking skills, but unless this is your teaching goal, then let them have a say over the way they want to present. Some students may indeed, usually the more extroverted ones, they might indeed choose to present in front of an audience, but for some other students, it might be better, they might feel more comfortable to add voiceover to their slides and upload on Edmodo or Google Classroom and present asynchronously to their classmates. For some other students, it might be better to create a podcast or a video. So let them have a say over their learning, personalize the learning experience, use technology to make learning flexible for them. Because, yes, this can be transformative. Criterion number 5. Part of the pedagogical decisions that we need to make have to do with digital responsibility and ethics, and I know that there are lots of questions around these issues. So before I start talking, I would like to ask you one question, the last one. What are the challenges that students may face regarding digital responsibility, safety, and ethics? You have 1 minute. Off you go.
She'll lie and steal and cheat and beg you from her knees, make you think she needs it this time. She'll tear a hole in you, the one you can't repair. But I still love her, I don't need her.
Thank you. So, I know there are lots of questions around these issues. I train teachers, I get to listen to their stories, to their concerns, to their questions. Other technologies which are more appropriate than others, for example, or how can we teach students to avoid plagiarism, to keep what is private, private, to not be distracted by Instagram during the lesson. So for many teachers, these are great barriers to technology integration because they find it very difficult to deal with the issues that students face when they use technology. I spent a long time researching these issues. My research thesis was on this, and I know that students are very concerned and parents are concerned. So, in short, I would say that we need to teach students to avoid plagiarism and respect copyright laws. In the era of open access, when it is so easy to find information, it is also easy to copy and paste it and pass it off as your own. However, is this ethical? And perhaps more importantly for us English teachers, does it facilitate or impede language learning? It does impede language learning because if they copy and paste, then are they learning the language? No. But the only way for students to avoid plagiarism is for us to show them how to avoid it. Did you know that most students plagiarize because they don't know how to synthesize information into their own original argument? So, ownership and authorship should be respected, and we should be an active part of this. Communicate effectively and respectfully. We talked about knowledge communities and participatory cultures and collective intelligence. So students will be interacting and collaborating, but they need to do so in a polite way. They need to voice their opinions, they need to share, but in a respectful manner. And we need to teach them how to do that. And because cyberbullying is here to stay, students need to know how to deal with cyberbullying, both proactively and reactively. And they need to be able to manage their digital footprint. Digital footprint comprises the traces that we leave behind from everything and anything that we do, our searches, our purchases, our likes, everything that we do online forms our digital footprint. And this is not necessarily negative. It can be positive. We can promote our work. Students can facilitate admission at college. They can create their digital portfolio, for example, and their personal brand. But they need to know that there is negative digital footprint as well, and we cannot delete it, ever. And they need to know that there is no such thing as complete privacy online. Because even a private conversation on Messenger should be considered as public, because it is so easy to take a screenshot and pass it on. So they need to know that if something is really private, they will need to keep it offline. And of course, we need to help them to manage their digital distractions. Technologies, despite the opportunities and the potential, are also chronically distracting us. Teachers are very concerned. They say that students do Instagram and Facebook in the classroom during the lesson. Parents are concerned that it is very difficult for students to stay focused when they do homework because of the various distractions around them. And policymakers are concerned. And they ban mobile phones from the classroom in an effort to manage this problem, depriving students and teachers of the opportunity to use phones as a learning tool, because they are great learning tools as well. So, if you are interested in these issues on digital distractions, on digital responsibility and ethics, there are two articles that I wrote for Cambridge Language Assessment, and you will be able to find them in the references. But as a rule of thumb, when it comes to distractions, I would say don't ban the devices, teach procedures. And when it comes to young learners, this is a particular group. We need to be extra proactive, not in a scary way, because scare tactics don't work. Young learners need to know about technology, and they need to be using technology, but we need to be extra proactive with them. So we need to select tools that do not require sign-up or too much information from students. Young learners should not have email accounts. We need to think before we post our students' photos online. We need the parents' consent. They should not be identified. I noticed in Chris's plenary that he used some photos of his students, but he blurred the faces, and that's exactly what we need to be doing. So we cannot post our young learners' photos online. Young learners should not be left unsupervised to surf the internet. We need to provide them with the links. And then, gradually, as we help them to build their resilience, then gradually we need to let them, more unsupervised. We need to teach them about privacy. It is never too early. Even 4-year-olds need to know about privacy and about digital footprint. And of course, we need to involve parents. It is not our job to supervise kids when they are at home, but we can join parents because we have this common and very, very good purpose. So involve parents as well. Some of you may be thinking, but it is not my job to talk about responsibility and safety and ethics. I have a syllabus to teach. It is not my job to do this thing. But I would say that these are learning skills, and they need to be developed in the context of learning. They are learning skills because they interfere with students' learning. If students plagiarize, for example, this will have a very negative impact on their language learning. If students do Instagram, they are distracted during the lesson, then this will have a very negative effect on their learning. So digital responsibility is part of digital language learning pedagogies, and it should be part of every digital literacy framework. And a few more points. I'm going to talk about impressive technologies, difficult technologies, and about time management. So don't get impressed by bells and whistles. I know there is a lot of this out there, impressive technologies, amazing technology, they do this and that, but the cool characteristics of the tool are not going to help your students to learn. Quite the opposite. They may distract them by giving them some cognitive overload. And there are good theories to support that, cognitive theories of multimedia learning, according to which learners' working memory capacity is extremely limited when it comes to new information, when they are learning something new. So our tools and materials should aim at reducing unnecessary cognitive load on working memory and instead be focused on the concepts to be learned rather than trying to entertain. So remember that less is more when it comes to multimedia instructional design. And what about complicated technologies? If the tool is very difficult to learn, of course, this is very relative. Difficult and complicated, these are very relevant terms because a teacher might be tech-savvy and to him or her, the tool might not be difficult, but for someone else, it might be too difficult. So I would say if the particular technology is very complicated for you, then it is not your technology. Maybe you should start from an easier technology, and then when you familiarize yourself with the technology, with the characteristics of the tool, then you can move on to something more complicated. And remember, you don't need to be IT experts. You need to be language experts who use technology. Finally, time management can be an issue. How can we keep up with so many technologies when we have a syllabus to teach? The good news is that you don't need to know about all the technologies and you don't need to master all the technologies. So I would say create your toolkit and stick with the tools that you are happy with. For example, 2 tools, 3, 4, 5 technologies for this year, and then replace and update this toolkit according to your students' needs, according to how you feel. If you feel more confident to move on to something more complicated or something different, then that's absolutely fine, yes, and you should do that. And collaborate with other teachers because they can be a fantastic source of information and learning. For example, let's say that I'm a teacher, and this year I decide to explore Padlet with my students, and my colleague Maria is going to explore Edmodo. And then we can exchange experiences and ideas. We can arrange peer observations, or if our classes coincide, we can record our lessons, and in this way learn about two tools. So collaborate with other teachers, because they can be an amazing source of information. And of course, join the new learning technology SIG, the B-Belt SIG. Graham is here, and he can tell you all about it. Joining a SIG can be an amazing opportunity for learning as well. So, closing. Seven years ago, I wrote an article, a short article. I was doing my master's degree with the University of Manchester. I studied educational technology and TESOL. And I used this article to challenge the existing paradigms, the existing models in technology education that merely invest and focus on the tool rather than the learning, rather than the pedagogical use of the technology. So I used this article to challenge these paradigms of technology education, because I felt, I still feel that this is a very, very narrow perspective about what technology can do for education, about the transformative potential of technology in ELT. So with this in mind, I'm going to close this plenary session with a short 3 lines, I think, for you to take away. And if you want to read the whole article, then you will find it in the references. The hype to use the latest and greatest digital tools rather than the meaningful use of technology is like driving a cool car without any vision for where you want to go. We don't want this. We love technology, and we want to use technology because it can open the door to so many opportunities. But we do need pedagogy, not just cool tools. And one last thing. It is not the technology that is transformative, it is how you use it, or perhaps how you encourage your students to use it. So, technology has the potential to transform education, but it cannot transform education without you, because you are transforming education. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Here are the references. Can I show my contact details?
Sure.
Can I show my contact details in the slides? Thank you. May I? Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. So, Q&A, there are not going to be any Q&A here on stage because of logistic reasons, but please come say hello and ask me questions. Also, drop me a line, or if you are on Twitter, please ask your questions on Twitter. Follow me, and I will follow you back. Let's create these knowledge communities and participatory cultures that we were talking about. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. And on behalf of the British Council, please accept this token of our appreciation.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Please join me again in thanking Sophia by giving her a big round of applause. Please remember that the concurrent sessions are right after lunch at 3 o'clock. Now it's lunchtime from 1:30 to 3 o'clock, so please make your way to the designated room marked on your lunch ticket. See you back here in this room at 6 o'clock for our final plenary session and closing ceremony. Thank you.